Gather round, dads, it's time for a tale. Hand me a book and a warm pint of ale. Let's discuss writing and the literary gods with Dan Roberts on the Dad Lit Pod.
Okay. Welcome to the Dadlit Pod, the literary podcast for people who always finish a set of push-ups by doing one for the Marine Corps and one for Chesty Puller. That one's for you, Kristin. I'm joined by YouTube's own nonsense-free editor, Kristin McTiernan. She is an author, professional editor, small business owner, literary gadfly, and United States Marine Corps veteran. And as you know, we love veterans on the Dadlit Pod. At 17, Kristin had to choose between joining a convent or the Marines. The Mother Superior was a veteran and recommended Kristin serve her country. She went on to serve for 2.5 years before an injury sent her to college instead, where she got a bachelor's in English and a master's in curriculum design. She now has a thriving career offering editing and ghostwriting to authors while writing her own books about women in weird situations. And people love those books. She lives in Kansas City, is obsessed with culture, movies, and the everlasting gender war. It is a peaceful life, according to her. She has a YouTube channel, The Nonsense Free Editor. She offers editing, ghostwriting, and indie publishing consulting. She has a Substack called The Fictional Influence, where she does cultural commentary, and she has novels. Her new one, The Twitter Crush, a case file thriller, is currently in progress on Serial Journeys on Substack. And thank you, Kristin, so much for coming on. I'm so excited to have you here and to just pick your brain on many a dad lit and editor topic.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, Kristin, what got you into the editing game? What gets a person to the point where they become a professional freelance editor, and what does that uh, consist of?
Well, the good thing for me is I've only ever really been good at one thing, and that's writing and words. So it's very clarifying. It's not a lot of decision making. You're good at the one thing. That's what you do. So after being a teacher did not work out for me. Absolutely not. You have an English degree. What else do you do with
Yeah.
it? So I started off as a tech editor for the government in the DoD. And when you're at the lower ranks, people think that all federal employees have very cushy salaries, but at the entry level, you don't. And I
Yeah.
was newly married and I needed more money. And so I was like, well, let me try out this freelancing thing. And I started initially working with an agency called First Editing, where you get paid a pittance compared to what the client actually pays. But I was good at it and I made a lot of money, or a helpful amount of money. But then, you know, working for other people, it always has its downfalls. So I think it was 2011 when I went off on my own. I said, okay, well, I was certified as a Fiverr Pro, which was, something that you had to audition for, and I got it. And the algorithm is much kinder to you when you get that designation. So I went from an agency to Fiverr, and then, by doing YouTube, really, that's kind of where I blew up. I had one video go onto the front page of Google, and it was about which one was it? It was about not getting scammed with a ghostwriter, and that's
Oh,
when I
okay.
took off because people were like, "Oh, apparently there's a lot of people who get scammed or who are afraid of being scammed," and seeing that video on the front page of Google helped them find me, and that's really when going into business for myself really took off.
Oh, so basically the tech world actually worked for you as an author and a writing professional.
Yes, we are all victims of the algorithm, and if it favors you, it can do great things.
Yes, and I discovered you actually through your YouTube channel. the nonsense-free editor, which I may accidentally say the no nonsense editor, but it's the nonsense-free editor.
Yeah, you wouldn't be the only one because when I
Yeah.
said no nonsense editor, like there were a lot of other editors who had that as at least their tagline, if not their title. So I was like, is there anyone who does nonsense free? And no, there wasn't. So I snatched it up.
Yes. And I found you on there because you had a lot of interesting things to say about male geared literature versus female geared literature, which, if I'm correct, has garnered you a lot of attention and a lot of exciting engagement on YouTube.
Oh, absolutely. That one went for me mega viral. I got over 100,000 views, which was completely unheard of up until that point. I had I think about 5,000 subscribers over 7 years, and most of my videos got about 100 to 200 views in the first 24 hours. And then once that one hit, that went all over the place because it really hit a nerve. A lot of men, and I have found this even before that video came out, where men feel like what they like and what they want to write is not acceptable. Like I would have prospective clients say, "Okay, well, my protagonist is a man. Is that okay?" Like asking my permission, and I'm just a service provider. I'm just your editor. Why are you asking me for permission? And it's because they'd gone through this with other editors who are like, "Oh, I don't edit patriarchal stories, or I don't edit heteronormative protagonists or nonsense. Like this is not like a publisher's editor. These are freelancers.
So,
We serve the authors ostensibly, and they're acting as their own little gatekeepers.
so this is quite surprising. I didn't know about this.
Hmm.
So what you're suggesting is that even if you try and go out and find a freelance editor,
Hmm.
you can have freelance editors who will be like, look, your money's no good here,
Yeah.
because of the creative choices that you've made.
What I found, the people who have those stories specifically were coming from Reedsy because Reedsy only hires people with New York publisher experience. So they don't just like they don't hire me. Like I'm listed on there, but
Hmm.
I don't get any work through there. They only hire people with Big Five experience. And so those same people who tell you no when they work for Penguin Random House, now, one, their rates are higher because a lot of people want to get traditionally published, and rightfully they think that they will do a better job to get them that to that goal. And then
Yeah.
two, they have the same ideology. Ew, I don't want to work with you. They're still keeping their little club of clients.
Oh, interesting. So what is the you hit a lot on a lot of the publishing culture and publishing cultural elements. And particularly a video you recently did, you talked about your own experience trying to get a traditional publishing deal, which you were able to get, although you said it was a soul-crushing experience.
Oh no, that wasn't a traditional publishing deal.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
That was writing to market.
Oh,
And,
writing to
and it went
market. Yes.
well for sales, but it was soul crushing because it wasn't what I wanted to write. It was paranormal romance, which is fine, and it was closed door, so it wasn't something that was aberrant to me, but it wasn't what I wanted to write. It was just what the market said was selling. And
Yeah.
ugh.
So when yeah, now I know you really enjoy editing and seeing
Mhm.
other people's stories through, and you've said this on your channel. And by the way, everyone should go to the Nonsense Free Editing channel on YouTube and enjoy it. What would you like to write if you had your druthers?
Well, I'm writing the thriller now, and I
Mm.
really love it because I'm a chronically online person. I spend way too much time on Twitter. And I'm just kind of leaning into that, instead of saying, okay, well, I'm going to fit into, well, how does, you know, uh, Dean Koontz, I know that's a dated reference, but how does he write a thriller? It's like, no, how do I want to write a thriller? And I'm
Mm.
kind of leaning into that and realizing that my audience is probably chronically online. And the majority of what I do read is thrillers and police procedurals. I love paranormal things. But that weirdly has kind of gotten tainted by all of the
Romance
monster fucker
elements.
books. Yeah. So
Yes.
and that's not what I'm really into. So you have to understand where the market's at and what people think when you say, I write paranormal books. What they think it is isn't
Is sex
necessarily
with ghosts.
right.
Yeah. No, no. I had an idea and I've mapped it out and I came up with this concept of a book that I knew would make my mom cry. And
Mhm.
inevitably it's about a woman having sex with a ghost.
It's very
Which
Beverly Crusher of you.
I just know my mom would read that and she'd be so devastated by it.
Yeah, I have experience with that. One of my trilogies, Black Magic's Prey, it involves black magic, as the title might imply. My very Catholic father was like, "Oh, I don't know if I like this, dear." So it's like, sorry, Dad. Sorry.
Well, before we get to your Twitter, because I do occasionally like to go on tangents, you having written supernatural books to that extent, how does having a Catholic upbringing where you almost became a nun build a person up to be able to write a supernatural thriller or a supernatural book like that? Because I have to imagine that's very helpful.
It really is, and especially in my case, I not only did I study theology in my preparation to be a nun, I also went to Catholic school as a
Hmm.
child, and Irish Catholic, we've tended it's not just a religion, it's your identity as well. So it's very important that you know the differences between yourself and the Protestants, always said with a little bit of a sneer, the Protestants. And just looking at it, I was able to say, well, okay, why are these religions, even though they're ostensibly all under the Christianity umbrella, why are they different? What made them different? Was
Right.
it just politics? In some cases it was, or in some cases, is it theology? Is it the question of, well, is this account real or is it not? And just looking at the different countries and cultures and then studying literature, of course, English literature, Protestant versus Catholic, that played a lot of roles in literature as it was written as at the time. And so just looking at the various cultural and religious influences and the legends that popped up around them, it's like, okay, well, when Catholicism came to Ireland, what did the pagans believe at that time? And just believing that it's true to someone, at least. Who was it true
Yeah.
to? And why was it true to them? Um, so, for me, my my faith now is kind of up in the air. I do have Protestant leanings, very Puritan, very Calvinist leanings that infect my childhood Catholicism. So I'm very interested in different religions and pagan and magic and things like that. And I absolutely do believe that, magic exists. I believe that demons are a thing and probably
Mhm.
things like ifrits that aren't really part of Western culture, but there's a lot of overlap there with fairy and elven lore. So, I absolutely believe that at least those things were real at one point, even if they're not now.
It certainly sort of gives things a greater sense of weight to center them in icons of the past.
Hmm.
I think that's interesting. It goes into an ongoing debate that I know has erupted in the dad litosphere, which is whether you can have sort of artistic vision or stories without this sort of sense of awe and wonder by either centered in religious upbringing or alternatively centered in sort of ideas around morality and those sort of things. This vision that sort of a nebulous nihilism is not the way to go. And dads
Hmm.
don't seem to like nihilistic novels at all.
Hmm. Well, there's so much of it now. It's like, oh, well,
Oh,
you,
it's
you
brutal.
shouldn't even have kids because it's going to ruin the environment. And I mean, we're all going to die anyway. It's like, yeah, I don't need to hear any more of that. Thanks.
I think the place where I've seen it, and it's been really, really overwhelming, and sort of a bummer, is actually in horror books.
Hmm.
You get to the end of the horror book, and go through the whole experience with the person or the character, and the result is simply, oh, none of this really mattered. The bad guy won in the end,
Hmm.
and I guess we just all suffered together.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I didn't want that.
Yeah, I've never really been okay since I saw the movie Seven. It was just I've never been all right after that. Like I'm very
Yes.
sorry I saw it.
Which gets me to your thriller. Tell me all about it.
So
Because
the
you're
Twitter
doing something
crush,
cool. Yeah.
yes, I'm doing something different because I thought about writing it as a traditional novel, and I'm like, I don't think that's the best way, and I don't feel like that's really how I think anymore. So the Twitter Crush is a thriller where it's about a ghostwriter who he's a man and he makes his money, and this is back in 2017, right after the first election of Donald Trump. Everybody's getting canceled left and right, and he's making his money by leaning into the male feminist ally brand. He doesn't believe any of this stuff and he hates his clients, but he's making that money because that's what the culture's doing at that time. And then one of his online friends, he lives mostly online, disappears. And this friend, coincidentally was one of two missing men who was loudly criticizing his most recent ghostwriting client and saying that she's not who she says she is. And he has some proof. And then poof, two different men are gone. And so he, being a military MP previously, says, okay, well, the cops aren't looking into these guys because people are allowed to disappear. So I'm gonna. And it's told in a epistolary form. So we've got blogs, we've got podcast snippets, we've got Instagram lives, we have police reports, and it's just piecing everything together of what is happening, what he's discovering, what is happening to him the deeper he digs. And it's a lot of fun to write. And I'm sending it for review to people who are chronically online and also normies, so I can make sure that it's accessible to everybody. And I'm releasing it serially right now on Serial Journeys. And, depending on how that goes, we're doing a 10-week run. Some people prefer to read traditional books. So I'm thinking it'll probably make its way to the Amazon shelf at some point.
Yeah, sort of like a House of Leaves.
Yes,
Yeah.
only I won't make you. This is my big thing with House of Leaves. You had to physically rotate the damn book to read some of the text. I won't do that to you.
That's very kind of you. I have yet to sit down. I got my wife got a copy
Hmm.
for the holidays, and I've yet to sit down and read it. But I had heard that you have to turn it around.
And I
Yes.
didn't like it. It taxed my patience. A lot of people really loved it, men in particular, male readers, that kind of investigatory piecing together aspect. They really liked it. For me, I just got irritated with it. I'm like, could you just,
Hmm.
it was a little too avant-garde for me, but a lot of people really loved it.
It's an interesting way to go about telling a story because I'm a professional historian. So when we go through or we put together a story, we usually do what you're describing, which is to piece it together from a series of different perspectives to bring it all together. I think, unfortunately, representations of this in the past have I don't think they've really captured it as well as they should have. The only really good example being World War Z,
Hmm.
the oral histories of the zombie war. But I think that's really interesting. And you have said that you are intentionally writing this with an eye towards male readers.
Yes, yes, indeed. Because that's what I didn't realize the numbers were so skewed. My audience has always leaned male. So I think before
Yes.
the Men in Fiction video went as viral as it did, I think it was probably more around 70% men, and
Hmm.
across platforms. After that video, it's like 93% men.
Hmm.
And so I noticed, I'd post my books, I'd put little, blurbs on them on Substack and my articles, and people were clicking on them, but then they were not buying. So I was like, okay, I know that you're willing to spend money on me because you become a member of my YouTube channel and you're a paid subscriber to my Substack. So it's not that you're stingy. You don't want these books. Why not? Oh, because you
Yes.
think they're chick books, or in some cases they are, you know. So it's
Yes.
like
Yeah.
if my audience is male, I need to make a pivot and write something that is appealing to men with a character, with a male character who is appealing to men.
So describe your approach to, because obviously I end up writing, I'm told from people who read my stuff that my books are very male centric and are
Mhm.
particularly appealing to boomers, elder millennials, and believe it or not, boomer women tend to
Mhm.
really enjoy my books because, I put in a lot of Jewish Borscht Belt humor. But how does one structure when they are making a conscious attempt to write to men or
The
for a male
characters are
audience?
usually where I start. So when I'm writing Jackson, we want to make him flawed, obviously, but the type of flaws that will endear a man to a female reader are not the same kind of flaws that will, make a guy root. You're not going to want a guy who's like, oh, I'm going to conquer my demons and I'm going to be a better husband. I mean, that's a nice byproduct, but that's not a goal per se.
Yeah.
So I make sure that Jackson is very action oriented. He's always driving forward, and every setback that he has is a physical one because it's more action oriented versus navel gazing.
Hmm.
And the flaws that he has, it's a lack of awareness where the guy can sit there and go, you need to pay better attention, bro, because what you're doing, you're going to get yourself in trouble. It's not finger wagging where
Hmm.
it would be from a female writer because as I'm giving these to reviewers, the male ones are like, is it bad that I like him? And it's like, no, he's the protagonist. You're supposed to like him. But the female
Hmm.
reader's like, oh, he's kind of a jerk. And I do have one of my female reviewers, and she's a bit of a lib. She's really liking my female serial killer more than Jackson. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm hitting the right spot
This is
because
terrific. I like
yeah, you're
that.
supposed to have that divide.
Yes. This is interesting because my most recent work in progress, or the one that I'm trying to sell now, I actually wrote, I intentionally sat down and I wrote it with a female audience in mind because I wrote it
Mhm.
for my wife. It's a thriller about a woman who is suddenly set upon by a stalker and must learn to figure out why and how to stalk back.
Mhm.
And it's called Mr. Bullet School for the Stalked. And it was an interesting experience writing for women with a female protagonist because I was always very conscious of voice. Would she feel this way? Would she say this? What does, for example, you talk about a masculine urge to action. What does feminine urge to action look like? And it was an interesting experience. And I had to have her check it over for me continually to have my wife check it over to me to give insights. So I
Mhm.
think that's really interesting. And now uh, you have pursued this vision of books for men. What, if any, ideas do you have to figure out how we can market Dadlit to dads and get dads reading?
Well, the biggest part is obviously getting your book in front of people. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, just so you know, I have a book. Okay, they know you have a book. Then what? Why would they want to take the time to read it
Hmm.
or listen to it? A big thing that I found with my most successful male authors who write in male genres is on day one, they have all three available: paperback, ebook and audio. That's really important because, we're talking specifically to dads. So if we're talking about boomer dads, maybe he likes the print book better. He's got some time, he's retired, he wants to sit and just really absorb the world. But then we're talking about a dad to three toddlers. That probably isn't the case. And if it's not available in audio, he's not going to read it.
Hmm.
Length, I've found, doesn't really seem to be a deciding factor at all for male readers. They don't care because they can, I don't know why men can stop like in the middle of a chapter and it's fine, whereas women are
Yeah,
a
we
little more
can.
neurotic. If it's not a chapter end, they can't, they have to stop. So shorter chapters do really well with certain genres of female oriented fiction.
Hmm.
Male oriented fiction, it doesn't matter at all. So that is something, but having that flexibility in how it's consumed, that seems to make a difference because, maybe you like to read on a screen, maybe you like to read on an e-reader, maybe you have time and you want to do the book, but just having that flexibility really helps. They have to know about the book. It has to be in the format that works for them. And of course, the story and the cover have to be appealing. Men are very visual creatures. And I mean, I don't even know if you can say that's a man thing, but cover is always very important, regardless of who you're marketing to.
Yeah, give me a breakdown because you also did a terrific video where you talked about cover mistakes and good ideas for covers, and also about what you described as male coded covers. What is
Mhm.
a what would you say a male coded cover is, and what is a good dad lit cover going to look like, other than maybe a Carl Hyacin book? I've come to the conclusion that it just looks like a Carl Hyacin book. I'd love to get your thoughts on this.
I don't know about dad lit because I'm very biased. So my own dad, um, he exclusively read westerns and fantasies, and they had those beautiful painted old style Louis L'Amour
Hmm.
covers where for the westerns it was the man on the horse and maybe, and another man beside him and they have their shotguns. And then for the fantasy, it was always a lizard creature and a man with a sword and a scantily dressed woman. So it's like, and those are still very popular. The problem is those are expensive.
Hmm.
If you use a human artist. But people do tend to resonate better. A snapshot from the book, more like a movie poster, resonates better with men. The simplistic, a flowing dress on a hanger behind a pink backdrop, men don't like that crap. For the
Yeah,
simple
probably
ones that
not.
men do like text-based, big bold text with blood running down the O or something like that. The subtle covers work sometimes with literary fiction, not so much with genre fiction.
Mhm. And so when you conceive of, or when you sit down and you're providing publication advice to an author, when do you like to start that process?
Usually after the edit. So when I have my self-publishing services, so like interior formatting, if I refer you to a cover artist, if I do the publicity, that's those are add-on services because I need to read your book. I can't just have a summary. I can't
Hmm.
feed it into AI and look at the bullet points. I have to read it. I have to go through it to kind of get the feel of it. And that way, if you ask me questions, hey, this is my mock-up from my artist, what do you think? If I haven't read it, I can't really offer that service. So it's always after, whether, whatever kind of edit you want, whether it's a line or the full developmental edit, it always comes after that. And assuming there are no rewrites. Sometimes after a
Hmm.
developmental edit, rewrites are needed. But once we get to the point where we've had a developmental, including a line edit, and you've had your final proofread, then, we go into that.
Okay, talk me through a developmental edit. What does that consist of?
So
What's
depending on
the
who you go
expectation?
to, but for me, I also include a line edit. Some editors don't. So a developmental edit is designed to catch big picture, plot, character, setting, consistency, things like that. Your use of language. How is this fitting into the genre? Like I had a developmental edit earlier this month where, he he said he wanted it to be horror, but I'm like, this is not giving horror. This is kind of giving urban fantasy. So, either you need to market it differently or there needs to be some rewriting. And he wanted to do the rewriting because he's like, look, I really wanted this to be a horror. So you want to make sure that all of those things vibe. You want to make sure that you have a good plot arc. All of your characters have satisfying arcs. Even if this is part of a series and that arc is going to continue, each book needs to have a consistent one. If there's scenes that need a chop, like you have this whole scene in chapter 4. Why is it here? I've read this whole book. I see no reason why it's here. Chop. So it's those big picture changes. And then for me, I include the line edit just because it's better. It's easier to do it that way, where you polish the text, and proofreading and mechanics as well. But it's mostly to, okay, this sentence is 14 words and it could be 8. Or you use this word, it doesn't really work. Let's use this one instead. Things like that.
Yeah, how long does it take to sit down with, say, 100,000 words and do that sort of thorough developmental and line edit process?
Usually about a month. So 30 to 40 days. And my process is I get it, I don't touch it. I read it. I just read it, go through. Sometimes I take notes, but I don't make any changes to the actual manuscript because a lot of the times if you just read and edit immediately, it'll be like you'll leave some comments like, I don't know what you're doing here. And then you'll find out what he was doing there
Yeah,
later.
yeah.
And so it's like, all right, if you read it through the whole way, don't touch anything. Okay, now you've read it, you know what he's doing, what he's planning. So the comments are better and it's more streamlined. And the way I do it is I make comments and changes to the manuscript using track changes, but then I also provide an analysis so you can have that quick reference. It's like, okay, here were my impressions reading through for the first time each of your chapters. Here's what I experienced. If I have recommendations, here are those. And then, like, the paragraph form, here's what I thought of your characters. Here's what I thought of your plot. Here are some major problems, and here are my recommendations for fixing those problems.
Yeah. Explain to me what a beat is. What is a story beat?
Story beats are, I really like the way the South Park guys talk about this, where you have a story beat. It's like, this happens, therefore, this
Yes,
happens. So
I
it's the
posted this video.
happenings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
those are your
Okay.
story beats.
Yes. And what is give me a sort of an example of where you would really want to have certain story beats and what they would look like in a genre, for example. Like you're writing a thriller. So
Mhm.
your thriller is going to want to have story beats. What are some of those beats that you're going to look for, you're going to pursue in like a story that is a thriller?
So with a thriller, you're obviously going to have somebody dies. You're going to have
Yeah.
a murder or a missing person. Okay, why does that inspire our main person to investigate? Maybe they're just a cop on the beat and they're assigned to it, or maybe there's some other reason. So we have to have that why. Then there's going to be a complication, and then there's going to be a red herring. Oh, I thought this was going to be the solving, and it wasn't. And then there's going to be a thwart. You always have the thwart where, something that keeps the story going for a long time. The Killing did this really well. It was a
Oh
show
yeah,
AMC.
really good.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, and then you want to have the all is lost moment, give me your badge and your gun, that comical. And then you're going to have the redouble. It's like, okay, I'm refreshed. I don't care that he has my badge and my gun. I'm going to solve this anyway. And then you have your climax, of course, and then you're resetting the end.
Hmm.
That's very broad strokes, obviously, but
Yeah, and you had Tim Grawl on, and he talked
Mhm.
about his like writing instruction school that he's doing.
Yes. So they
What?
had the story graph. So that's much more in depth, and I have not read that one, but there are some very granular. I like the looser ones. So Libby Hawker's Take Off Your Pants, which is a shorter, more concise version of The Anatomy of Story, which is the 22 beats of a story, and that's
Hmm.
based on screenwriting. So there's a lot of different. The snowflake method is a very popular one because it's thorough. You
Hmm.
really plan everything out before you start writing. So it just depends what works best for the genre you're writing, what works best for your style as a writer. So for me, the snowflake method is great, but it's too much for me. It doesn't vibe with the way that I write, whereas the take your pants off one does.
So what's your method of putting together a story?
My method, I'm a plotzer. So
Hmm.
I have very in-depth plotting, I'm going to say for the first quarter, and then very loose plotting for the midpoint. And I never plot out the end because I know it's going to change. So I start writing, all right, and I stick pretty close to the plot. And then about the midpoint, something's going to change. Something's going to occur to me. And I'll be like, okay, this thing that I wrote, that doesn't work. Ooh, but this one does instead. And then from there on out, it's pretty much pantsing until I finish it.
Hmm. And so, what is the role you as an editor are sort of an avatar, both acting on behalf of accomplishing the author's goals, but also representing the reader and what the reader has experienced? How do you balance that when you look at a piece?
I don't even know if you would call it balance. So I always say that I am here to tell you what I think and to give you, I call them recommendations. I'm not
Hmm.
giving an author orders. I'm not telling them, well, you have to do this. I never set standards because I am working for the author. It's like, okay, if you want to appeal to the reader that you have described as your ideal reader, here are my suggestions for that. And that is to, appeal to this person that you would like to sell something to. But ultimately, I do work for the author, and they say, okay, well, I want and only will accept a reader who gets my very subtle imagery, my symbolism that speaks to my amazing theme about gender and God. And if they don't get it, then they don't deserve my book. And you think I'm making this up? I'm not.
Well, that's sort of an expensive declaration.
Exactly. And then that's why I get, sometimes I make snide comments about like, oh, okay, you don't care about making money. Because most of the people who come to me, they say that, but they're lying. And I know they're lying because they just paid me $2,000 and I know you want to make that back because you're not independently wealthy. Um,
So let's talk about that because I think that's a super interesting thing.
mhm.
Uh, so what you're saying is generally a person comes in, they have it, they have their book, they have an idea, they want you to provide the developmental and the line edit, in your expertise and your experience. Did they come in and give you their goals up front? Do they say, Kristen, I'd really like to sell this to an indie press, or alternatively, I'd really like to self-publish this, or this is me writing my memoir to give to my kids. Do they come at you with goals on top of just the manuscript?
Oh, absolutely. And I always ask. So it's like, okay, well, what, especially with memoirs, because those
Hmm.
run the gamut. Because sometimes memoir authors really don't care if they make money. It's a gift for their family. So I
Yeah.
always want to make sure, what are your goals? What do you want to do with this? There are some authors who are hell bent. They only want big five publishers. And I'll often tell them, it's like, look, the majority of people that I edit for, they're indies. They only have to please the reader. They don't have to please New York people. So if
Hmm.
this is your goal, you might want to look around some. I might not be the best editor for you because I do want you to succeed with whatever your goals are.
Hmm. And what would you say? Because I think a lot of what makes a big five worthy work if someone comes to you and says, I want to go all out with this. I want to make this a smash. What makes it big five as a work of genre fiction, for example?
You're not going to like this answer. Um,
It's not Dadlet. That's the answer.
right. It's
Yeah.
it's whatever the 34-year-old plump lady that you submit it to thinks will make her money. And what will
Okay.
make her money is something that she can throw up on Book Talk and have a bunch of screaming, you know, 23-year-old women poorly spend their money on. Or if you are a person who already has a very big platform and you already have a customer base, oh, great, I can make money off of this.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people will say, oh, my book is really great or it's revolutionary. And I'm sure it is. And in some cases I have seen where just amazing works of fiction or memoir, they go nowhere because either the agents don't know how to pitch it, like they don't know how to sell it, or yeah, maybe I could sell this, but it's not going to be a smash hit. So,
Hmm. What gets your attention when you're buying a book for yourself?
For me, it's a sense of mystery and not necessarily the genre mystery, but it's okay, well, why is this? Okay, you've described a situation, but how did this person get into it? Or, oh, you've described this world, but I don't really understand. Like, oh, what do you mean the Catholic Church runs North America? How did that happen? Things like that. So you kind of a sense of mystery rather than, oh, I see myself in this lady. I want to read more about her. I mean, me. It's not so much that. It's usually a sense of mystery and needing to know what happens or why what happened.
Hmm.
That's usually what gets me.
So you tend to fall into sort of the mystery genre. That's what's going to drive the narrative for you.
Sometimes, but there's been some women's literature that I've read that just had that sense of mystery. I like cozy mysteries a lot because a lot of times they have touches of the paranormal. And with my job, commenting on the culture, I've also been drawn into that gross lady smut. And the best one, a genuinely good one, is called Haunting Adeline, which is filthy. It is filthy, but the mystery was spot on. So it's like, what is going on here? And it really drew me in. So,
that's that's great. I'm glad that hit home. My wife very much likes the romantasy and
mhm,
the now books about dragons. Before it
mhm.
was, Sarah J.
Elves.
Maas,
Yeah.
and now it's books about dragons because that's
Hmm.
what all of her friends are reading.
Hmm.
Um, what would be a good way? And by the way, I tried to get her to read Gurm, and she just was
Hmm.
like, "I'm just not into this."
Yeah. I don't like I like the show. I don't like his writing either. So
Really?
yeah.
Well, that's an interesting question. You are an editor and an expert. What throws you off about Gurm's writing? Because I actually really like it. I like the way he structures his chapters.
I think it's just I found it is a long time. I have not read this in a really long
Yeah.
time, but I was bored and frustrated at points. I'm like, well, why are we switching here? And it was just like I didn't feel like I could rest and pay attention to who I wanted to pay attention to before we switched to another story. And so I
Ah,
was just like, all right. And then there seemed to be a lot of unnecessary details. I like world building, but for me, I don't know. Like I loved the shows, obviously, until season 8 when they screwed the pooch.
yeah. Well,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I did not enjoy the books as much, and I was in my 20s, but
Hmm. You've also you've been having some fun with some cool other YouTube personalities. There are some great YouTube channels. I've seen you over at Echo Chamberlain,
Mhm.
who is just a brilliant, super fun cultural critic, and the critical drinker.
Oh,
And
I haven't been on Critical Drinker.
oh,
Don't,
you
don't,
haven't been on
yeah,
Critical Drinker?
yeah, that would be career making, but no, I've been in the channel.
Why do you think it is that those guys who seem to have just uh, like yourself, quite astute observations about story, about narrative, about men's literature, the trajectory of culture, all those things. Why are you guys not being asked by people who want to make money to help them make money?
Because they don't, I mean, they care about making money, but this is their identity, and it's a club.
Yeah.
Um, so and there's enough young women or men who will appeal to those young women who meet their ideological requirements or who are willing to pretend that they do, that they don't need to change. The business itself will be fine with just an insular club because, the money isn't necessarily coming from the customers. Um,
Where's
you
the
know,
money coming from?
Big money, you know. So if you need venture capitalism money, you could just get that. If you need a bailout, you could just get that. If you need money from a billionaire who thinks that you're just neat, he'll just give it to you because you're just a club.
Yeah.
Um, and that's
Yes.
the thing where and others that I talk to on Twitter, they get very upset, oh, well, we need to have a more conservative patronage program. But we just don't seem to do that at all. It's like, what do you mean you want me to give you money to publish books? I'm not doing that. Are you inventing an AI or something? Maybe I'll fund that. But conservatives don't really, very wealthy conservatives don't want to fund the arts at all.
Yes. Yeah. In the literary perspective, at least,
Mhm.
it does not seem to be a focus. No.
No, at all.
Yes. I think that one of the things that I've discovered is dad lit because dads are sort of innately conservative in a lot of ways. And finding books with, I would say, even sort of mildly conservative themes is very challenging. Do you think that it is a situation where, for example, with the Field of Dreams, that if someone built it, the audience would come? If someone put in the effort and someone committed the money, because of course there are a few presses that are trying that right now. Arc Press, I'm going to talk to an editor later this week about them and what they're doing. Do you think that it's that Dadlit could be a field of dreams where that'll happen, or do you think alternatively it's over? Or do you think that there's a way to do it from an insurgent point of view to create a dadlit book talk that does books and beers or books and ribs or through veterans groups and that sort of thing?
I don't know. It's hard to say, especially because if we follow the existing model of how publishers work, I don't know if it could because if you're a dad and you like books, how do you consume books? Generally speaking, if you're still in an area where it's pedestrian friendly, it's foot traffic. Oh, there's a bookstore. I'm
Hmm.
going to wander. I'm going to look at the shelves. I'm going to grab what's available to me because it's convenient. Or if you're on your phone, I'm going to go to Amazon. I'm going to see, okay, well, what's best selling this week? It's a matter of convenience. If you have to go and look for it, are you going to
Yes.
do that? It feels like you probably have a lot going on anyway. So the convenience factor in having it not being directly in your face in the places where you already are, that's kind of what sinks it. And especially something as niche as, okay, well, what's dadlit? So you're asking someone to identify as that. So even if they are fathers or older fellas, is that how they identify? Is that what would draw them in? Maybe not.
Hmm.
It's hard to say.
I think it's funny because I was on vacation. I was out at a cabin in West Virginia last week, and they had a bookstore in the town. It was not a used bookstore. I find that I can always find something I want to read at a used bookstore.
Mhm.
Um, but at a new bookstore, I just didn't see a lot that I was interested in. I saw the typical Stephen Kings. And of course, I was with my daughter who found a stuffed animal and was interested in that. And another gentleman walked in, and I said, you know, you don't mind if I ask you a question, but this is a new bookstore. These are all new books. And of course, this is in Western Maryland. And I know that there are wonderful dad lit centered independent presses in Western Maryland, like Shotgun Honey, where a lot of local West Virginia authors do crime novels set in that area. And was a tourist town, Western Maryland. And I just thought, well, why isn't there that table? We're in a new bookstore. This is kind of a touristy town. It's known for like the antiquing and the Western coal culture and the Rust Belt culture and celebrating all those things like trains and fire trucks. But for some reason, it was, as you described, romantasy books. A lot of romantasy books and a lot of books for teens.
Mhm.
What is I suppose I have ideas for how to fix this, but what do you do to convince the bookstore owners that people aren't getting like me or like the other guy that was there that I spoke to, and he said, "Oh, well, I have the two Stephen King books that are over there, and I like those, but no, I don't really see anything else." That there are men who will buy books and read them.
I think it's a matter of showing them the money because especially with physical bookstores, that's a very slim margin. It costs
Mhm.
them a lot of money to ship those books in to stock their stores. And they want the least amount of work possible. They want that if you build it, they will come. And they know that if they do a bunch of romantasy and TikTok stuff and they can just, slap an ad in the paper every now and again or on Facebook, then they'll get that foot traffic. They'll get, moms coming in and buying that. But it's less of a sure thing, and because women do the majority of the purchasing, full stop. So if you're marketing to women, you do better than if you market to men, especially non big spender men. So if you're looking at the middle class, if you're looking at the lower middle class, that's a hard sell. It honestly is, and that's regardless of what the product is, and they know that. And so they're like, well, if I'm gonna have to do a big advertising push, that's gonna cost me money, and is it worth it?
So this is a thing that I brought up as a possibility. Is the solution to market dad books to women and convince them to buy them for dads?
That might be better off, actually. I remember the most effective, and think about how they sell cologne. Think about how
Mhm.
they sell,
Pepperidge Farm.
coffee, Pepperidge Farm. It's always, there's a man in the commercial, but it's a woman, who's like, oh, well, he'll smell great if you get this. It's like, why are you talking to women for a men's cologne? Because that's who's going to do the buying. That's why.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
Hmm.
Maybe that's what we should be doing is talking to women and seeing what would convince them to pick up a book for a man.
Hmm. Well, yeah, because then that's frustrating, for me. Dad, I don't know what to get him, ever. It's like, do you have an Amazon list? It's like, oh, I know he likes books. Okay, great. What can I get him? And so sometimes I'll get him an indie book. I know he won't have heard of it. So it's a relief when it's like, all right, you've got your 20-year-old son. He doesn't read books, but he reads this lit RPG nonsense. What if there was a store, especially where you could get that for him and you could see what's selling really well and you could see what's popular. It's like, all right, my annoying, surly 20-year-old son who likes video games will like this book. I will make him
Mhm.
happy on his birthday, which normally I don't.
So, how does someone get in touch with Kristin McTiernan if they want editing work, if they want publishing advice, or if they want to read some of your stuff?
The best place to find me is nonsensefreeeditor.com if you want services. I do have a link tree, but that's a really convoluted address, so I won't bother you with that. But if you just want to read my cultural commentary, then you can find me at fictionalinfluence.com. And then I have all my links to all my other stuff there as well.
Mhm. And what's your Twitter name?
I am at Kristin_fiction on Twitter, and I spend way too much time on there.
Yeah,
So
I do too. I do too. I have a very similar approach to you where I find Twitter and YouTube the most amenable to me. And I seem to remember a video where you said that don't tell the Reddit people about me. I don't want to deal with them.
yeah, it just
And
I
I have
don't.
to say, I
Mm-mm.
completely empathize. I don't want to deal with them either.
Yeah, they just it's a very particular type of person who spends a lot of time on Reddit, and it's not the type of person that generally vibes with me. So, just keep that wall there.
Well, that's terrific. Everybody should go out, visit Kristen's site, check out her. Is it already, have you already released portions of the Twitter Stalker book?
Yes, so the Twitter Crush chapters 1 through 4 are currently available, and they will be free for the next 2 days. No, nope, those are going to be perma free. Never mind. So there's going to be new chapters every Wednesday. So the next 4 chapters are dropping in 2 days.
Oh, bold move. I like it. It's very experimental and
Yes.
fun. And that's what Kristen does. And that's why everyone should go to her YouTube channel. Kristen, thank you so much for joining me, the nonsense free editor, Kristin McTiernan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our time together has come to an end. It's time to return to your wife, kids, and friends. It's time to pick up those books you forgot while you wait for the next Dad Lit Pod.